Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Star Wars Rebels episode reviews. This one's going to be for Season 4, Episode 5 and 6, The Occupation and Flight of the Defender. I'd say both of them were good episodes that together more or less did make a two-parter. Wouldn't say I was amazed. I'm kind of still waiting for this season to properly, get going in terms of what is the main arc? What are we doing here? This is the last season. What are we actually building towards in terms of a finale for Rebels, for these characters, and so on? Right now, it's just kind of a lot of Rebel stuff is happening. We're doing this and that to help the rebellion, and the focus in the series right now is on this Defender TIE fighter, and it's fine. It's a cool ship for sure, but I'm like, okay, that's a lot. You've given this thing a lot of focus since it was first the idea of it was first introduced. Is it that important that it needs 5-6 episodes to cover it? That's where I'm kind of having my doubts in terms of I think it's distracting from what could be good development for Zeb, Hera, Sabine, Ezra, and so on. As it is, it kind of feels like, oh, here's a way to have an action scene in every single episode because they're going after ship data here, or they're stealing a hyperdrive here, and so on. Some of the, I suppose, need to have action constantly is maybe getting in the way of just strong development of characters and presenting a good plot. In that, I believe this episode was trying to make it out that oh, we've come to Lothal, but we're trapped on the planet now, we can't get off, no one has a hyperdrive, and it's just why did they go there if they had no hyperdrive to get out? And it's what's the kind of point of this? I get it was meant to be a risky kind of insertion operation, but it's why are we kind of presenting this as the kind of main plot right now? But overall, I appreciated returning to Lothal. That's kind of the core of kind of where the series is about. And by the end of the second episode, they were definitely presenting some interesting kind of mysteries about there's still something else to come out of Lothal, relating to Ezra, relating to the Force, relating to this new Lothwolf that we get introduced to at the end. I don't think they really tried to lead us down any sort of a path about what way we're meant to interpret it, beyond the fact that it's clearly some sort of a legendary creature that has powers kind of beyond just oh, here's a kind of defense mechanism for an animal. It kind of seems like it's some sort of a force sensitive animal to a degree, in that it can erase people's memories, it can allow itself to be seen or not, it can seemingly kind of teleport almost, and so on. So that's cool, just the fact that we got a little bit of lore of oh, there's these Lothwolves which were around 100 years ago, but no one's seen them in that long, and now here's one now. And that kind of combined, I think, with the Empire seemingly mining Lothal into the ground, and really, all the people are now in hiding. It's not just there's an Imperial force present on the planet, it is now fully Imperial occupied, and everywhere is taken over. So I kind of like the idea of the, what did they say, Joe's kind of cantina is now basically just an Empire cantina. And that was a kind of fun little thing of they walk in, there's still some music playing, but there's just no action. There's no alien species. It's just there. Weird reference, kind of bringing back Jai from the character voiced by Dante Bosco. This far on after the appearance, and then not really doing anything with him. He's just kind of with them in the first episode, and then he's just kind of oh, he's around. But I appreciate the reference, but not really sure what the aim of kind of really having the character back was. I guess it's sort of related to Lothal and the rebellion and so on, if it, but not the most, I suppose, impactful kind of reveal from the episode. I think for me the biggest takeaway from these two episodes was more of a character moment rather than any of the action, and that was just in the first episode you had a moment. Kanan and Hera are alone. They just talk about the fact that they don't often get too much time to themselves, and they basically almost had a kiss scene, and it was this kind of moment of okay, without even giving us the kiss, which I assume we're going to get at some point before the end of the series, you basically confirmed at that moment that okay, there is some semblance of romance to their relationship, which has always been the weird speculation about it, in that, like, the little things that, how close they are, the way they talk to each other sometimes, the fact that, like, I think Hera has called him, like, love a couple of times, but they've never really, in the first, like, 3 seasons, shown it all that much. They've been a little clearer about it this season, about Kanan very much, I suppose, more wanting to pursue the relationship, whereas, like, the rebellion stuff is kind of almost getting in the way of it. So it'll be interesting to see where exactly they go with that. And that, I think with both Kanan and Ezra, they're obviously taking paths that kind of differentiate themselves from, like, the Jedi Order, like how it was, in that they have Jedi powers, of course, they have Force abilities, but they're not going ahead with, like, everything that it is to be a Jedi. Otherwise, Kanan wouldn't be pursuing this relationship, and Ezra, like, wouldn't be, like, so attached and hell-bent on, doing everything he needs to do on Lothal. So, they might get away with some of, like, with keeping those two characters alive by maybe having to make some decision that really shifts them away from really calling themselves Jedi and more down the path of being, like, Force users. Or, depending on what way they go, they could be doing some weird kind of thing where, like, they really develop the whole idea of, like, Ezra has a connection with animals, and there's been, like, rumors that, like, Ahsoka and stuff like that will come back, and she obviously has, like, a connection to, like, owls or something like that, and I don't really know how that's all going to link together. We're waiting for them to actually address those plot points, but there's some cool stuff going on. But getting back to the main point I just brought up there, Kanan and Hera, that's, to me, one of the more interesting things going forward this season, is just their relationship. I hope we get more scenes between them like that, and I'd actually like them to just give us that kind of shipping romance moment of just having their relationship be made super, super clear to us, and have them almost come together and be more open as a couple. I don't think anyone would have too much of a problem with that, like, in universe, and I think it would add a much better dynamic to them in the series to just be much more open with it, and just see characters reacting to the fact that they're a couple now, or something like that. Unfortunately, I think there's the kind of foreboding kind of sense of, like, kind of all these characters, except, like, Hera, kind of feel like they have to die before the end of the series, so something tragic's going to happen. This relationship wasn't meant to be, in a way, but hopefully they do some good stuff with it before whatever they plan to do with the end. I think Thrawn being in this episode, as well as Governor Pryce, really added a nice dynamic to the kind of end of the second episode, in that before that it was just, the Defender again, let's have another episode focused on this ship. Him being there was just kind of like, okay, he's investigating them, he's using the fact that they've stolen the ship, and it's like, we'll use this as basically the test run for the ship. It's being piloted by someone else, but it will at the same time test how good our pilots are, as well as, I suppose, how easy our ship is for other pilots to use, and how much of an advantage that it gives them. And that Thrawn's takeaway with that, 1, okay, our pilots aren't that great. 2, Hera's not flying the ship. If she was, the fight would have been over much sooner. And 3, that Ezra, who's not really known for being, like, an amazing star pilot, he was able to use this ship first time flying it, and just win that fight. It took maybe longer than he maybe would have expected, but he won the fight against those 3 regular kind of TIE Defenders or TIE Fighters, whatever they were. And so he takes away from this that if we get our pilots into the TIE Defenders, then we are in a great position, in that it makes average pilots into amazing pilots just with the better machinery. I'm not really sure what they were going for with the whole idea that Thrawn just stood there and fired his blaster at the ship. It was cool that he just stood there and didn't flinch as, like, laser fire from a ship was coming in at him. But it was also a sense of, like, you didn't do any damage, you just fired at him and stood still and nearly got yourself killed. It felt like they wanted to have another Thrawn is awesome moment, but didn't have any goal to really accomplish there. I think it would have been fine with him just staying back and being kind of unflinching. He didn't need to like fire at them when it was obviously wasn't going to do anything. They also introduced the whole idea of the kill switch. This prototype model has a kill switch, which they used, but also set up the idea that they're stealing the hyperdrive, which I assume might be the next episode idea. But it seems like the crew is now kind of on Lothal for the next group of episodes, depending on how that goes. So, interesting. It feels like it means that more or less our finale kind of has to happen on Lothal and around it, which, you know, depending on where they go, I'm not really sure what approach they're going to really have with regards to the end of the series. And that Lothal's important, and they obviously established that at the start of the series, and in the Thrawn novel they kind of further established it. I'd like for them to present maybe some of the stuff about Governor Price, about her history with Lothal and mining and so on, to maybe in the show understand her better, because not everyone obviously is aware of the book and will have read the book, but it adds such great context to her as a character. If she ever is like killed off at some point, I think before that you need to have a moment where you address that there's such an interesting plot for the character. And then with Thrawn, I really don't think they'll kill him off, because I suppose we'll have to wait to see what the next Thrawn book does. But they're setting up something with like the Chiss and the Empire, and I'm not sure if that's going to be a plot point in this season. I really don't feel there's enough episodes to potentially introduce something that big, unless you have Thrawn make some big like movement in the final, and in like the final battle, and like, oh, it's all going fine, but then the Chiss army comes in as well, and that, you know, is what kills our rebels or something like that. I don't know if they do that, because it feels like it's a bit too reliant on the stuff from the book, and again, they haven't really referenced a lot from the book. So Thrawn may survive the series. I assume he will have to, because he's such an important character, but I don't really know. And I think that's where they really need to get on track with a sense of where the series is actually going. It's fine that we can mess around with the TIE Defender for a long time, but is that really what we're basing most of the final season of this show around? A new ship? I don't really think so. I think there's much more to be done here. And I hope we get there sooner rather than later. In that I assume there's probably some Darth Vader stuff to do. Ahsoka will probably come back, and then it's just all about how they wrap up character arcs, I think. How to decide to, like, I suppose, potentially end characters like Rex, Zeb, and so on. I don't know will they go back to the fact that Kallus is, you know, for now temporarily in control, command of the Ghost Crew with Rex. That was an interesting point, nice little interaction between Rex and Kallus. Don't know what it really means, in that they didn't directly set up a plot, it's just that they're looking after the Ghost for now. But yeah, I think that's basically all I wanted to say here. They're good episodes, but very little of substance with regards to like, oh, this is like an overarching season, it's the final season. It just still doesn't feel like they've like activated the we're on the path to the end of the series kind of switch just yet. But there's some good stuff here for sure. It's not in a way I felt that these two episodes were a bit more interesting than the last two, but overall the series I'm still waiting to get to the good stuff, I think. But yeah, the 2 episodes a week thing is working much better than 1 episode a week, so that's a huge positive, and I hope they continue that with like the second half of the season as well, that we don't just go to like 1 a week. But yeah, that's been the review for these 2 episodes. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on the episode, as well as what I had to say about them. But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.